Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well today. And I hope that everyone can hear me and everything is going well for you. I'm just going to wait for Maya to jump into the chat and then we'll get this going on. I know there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, and there's a whole lot and everything. So, yeah, I just thank you all for being here with us and for checking in and spending some time with us. Everything. Hey Maya, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing really well, thank you. It's good to see you.
You too.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
I'm intrigued about what's going to come through this conversation because we haven't really planned it.
Yeah.
It's just something that will just flow through us. So I'm very curious to see
Yeah.
what comes through.
Yeah, definitely. Same with me. Same with me. But with all things, that spirit is guiding us and we're good. We're all good.
Yeah, I just want to say to everyone listening that because we're in the flow and things are going to come through as they come through. We we just like to tell everyone that if you feel triggered by anything, please look after your mental health. Please take a moment to step out of the conversation if you need to. Obviously, people get triggered by many different things, so it's hard for us to tell what might be sensitive to some people. So please do look after yourself as well.
Definitely. Definitely. And as always, we just thank you all for joining us in this sacred container. And yeah, this is sacred, and what Maya and I do, we consider to be sacred. So it's beautiful that we can allow other people to witness that and be part of that. So we just thank you all again for being here. So today is all about sacred intimacy. This is probably I think this is one of my favorite topics. I think I love speaking about intimacy. I love it, and yeah, so it's gonna be great to speak to you about it. But yeah, today's all about sacred intimacy. How we cultivate it, what it is, how we cultivate it with ourselves, with others, and we're just gonna dig into this. We may do a reading. I've got the spirit of intimacy on hand, close by. So yep, I've got mine as well. Mine as well. Mine as well. So we give thanks to Sobunfu Some, who's gone on to be with the ancestors for the work that she's done. This book has been such a portal for Maya and I. And so yeah, which we both have finished the book, and this was a topic even before we read the book that we both felt very passionately about. So yes, we're just gonna dig into this. So yeah, Maya, for you, I guess it's a pretty broad question, but we'll just jump into it. What does sacred intimacy mean for you?
Oh, this is a big one, but I would say intimacy within a sacred container. So when I say sacred container, a container which has, sacred practices such as rituals or agreements, commitments that we welcome in spirit to witness as well. I think things, this is how I feel actually. It's more like a relationship with another human and spirit. So there's like
Mm,
almost three of you in a relationship. So being guided through a relationship and being conscious that you're being guided through a relationship because there's always other beings or spirit which are guiding us through. So I think one of the issues in the West, and it's so beautifully said in this book, is that we all just try and do it alone. Like we all just try, we're not in like strong communities generally in the West. It's a very individualistic society. And then we try and have these relationships with each other, or whether they're romantic, platonic, family relationships, and we don't have the support system built in place, and there's no rituals for when two people fall out. There's no community support. Whereas in the book, which just to say, it's called Spirit of Intimacy by Sabunfu Some, she talks about how in this village, which is near Burkina Faso in West Africa, if a couple in the village has a disagreement, it's everyone in the village's problem because it's like when your arm is ill, like the body is also ill because the arm is affected. So the village sees it as a responsibility to help that couple. And what they'll do is they'll use sacred rituals using, earth, fire, water, mineral, air, I believe, and, different elements. And they will bring the couple into ritual and they will work through their problems. Say, for example, conflict, it's something that we're very averse to in this society. It's either aggressive or passive aggressive. Like, it's not like healthily assertive, and there's very little like true honesty. And in one of the practices in this is like, the couple gets together and there are other people witnessing, but there is true honesty being told in this circle, even to the point of them shouting at each other, just getting it out, just being completely honest. That they're being witnessed in such a sacred way with other people and with spirit and with nature as well. And it's just like, when I was reading it, I felt it was so resonant. I felt like I was coming home. It was like, why the hell do we not do stuff like this here? No wonder everyone's struggling so much. We try and just do these relationships on our own without any kind of outer healthy influence. And then we wonder why we can't do it. And of course we can't do it because our society is literally built in a very dysfunctional way. So even if you were healthy people, the fact we even live in this society means that there is a sickness that's all around us that is going to affect some parts of the relationship. So yeah, I hope all of that makes sense, but that's kind of how I feel at this point in time about what sacred intimacy is.
Definitely. And thank you for sharing. And I guess it's a point to note as well that sacred intimacy can be between, as Maya shared, it can be a platonic container that you have for sacred intimacy. It can be something that is more what most people would consider romantic. But we can get into that later about the whole ideal or what Saban Fusome describes as the illusion of romance. It can be between family members. Sacred intimacy, with ourselves. Sacred intimacy is for all relationships, all different kinds of relationships with all different kinds of people that we choose to be in relationship with. So again, it's about, for me, it's about really having that intimate connection with myself, connection with that sacred intimacy with spirit. And then from there, I build intimacy with other people, and so with Maya and I, we have a platonic relationship, but it is incredibly sacred and it is incredibly intimate. Maya and I have explored depths of intimacy with each other that I don't know if I've gone to with anyone else, to be honest. We have an incredibly deep and rich and intimate relationship with each other. Like I said, that is platonic, but that fills us in ways that, I've connected more deeply with Maya than I have with any other romantic partner I've had in my life, if in life. So again, and that's one of the beautiful things about intimacy is that it's connection. It's about being seen fully as we are. That's what it's all about. For me personally, it's about being seen fully as I am and not being attacked for it. Being able to unpack and go deeper with each other. And then when you think that you've gone to all the depths you can go to, you another layer gets, you pull back another layer and you go deeper, and it's just been such a beautiful journey and trajectory cultivating that type of intimacy with you, Maya. It has been so life-changing, so healing, so beautiful, confronting, It's like, it's trauma comes up, it's like, I remember on the first, energetic conversation IG live we had, and I was like, I want to go deeper. And Spirit was just like, cool, great. The next level for you is more trauma. Like, that's going to be brought up because like, you're digging deeper and like trauma was being brought up. But again, Maya, I just thank you for seeing me the way that you do, just because it has been life transforming to have this level of intimacy, to be seen so deeply and clearly for who I am by someone else, and for that to be witnessed by you, and for us to create this sacred container. We go into it with ritual, we protect it, and that's something that I'm very, very adamant about, is about protecting, because once you cultivate sacred intimacy, you have to protect it, because that sacred intimacy, you're building a container around all those people who are involved in that, and you have to protect it. And I've stepped more into my divine masculine, by being in community, in relationship with you. So many things have happened. So I just want to share all of that. It's been such a beautiful and life affirming experience being in relationship with you.
Thank you. I feel exactly the same. And like Daniel was saying, it's had its challenges as well. Things come up, but I think it's the commitment, whether it's a platonic relationship, whether it's romantic. It's the commitment to the practices that keep it safe. I think emotional safety is such a key part of this as well. We were talking
Mm.
about this earlier. Like, what is emotional safety? It's knowing that no matter what comes up, like, you have rituals or systems in place that the other person will follow as well, where you feel emotionally safe, where that they're not just going to run off
Mm.
when you are at your most vulnerable. We do lack emotional safety in this culture, in this society. I think we're all working on our traumas all the time, and we're all in our fight, flight, or freeze response most of the time. And I was saying to Daniel earlier, one of the things about my past relationship, past romantic relationship, and the relationship with my dad, so no coincidence there, is there was no emotional safety. And I was looking to them to get emotional safety, and I couldn't. And at first I blamed them because I was like, it's not that hard, like, come on.
Mm.
But these two men did not know what emotional safety was because they didn't feel emotionally safe. They weren't given that education or the support to cultivate emotional safety within themselves. You cannot give what you don't have.
Mm.
You cannot give what you don't have. And I think one of the keys to sacred intimacy with anyone is, and depth of relationship with anyone is, cultivating emotional safety in yourself. Do you have tools to, when you have trauma, do you have tools to feel safe within yourself, like nervous system calming tools, um, emotional regulation, things like that? And then you can build healthier relationships from that. Because if you don't have a firm foundation, you can't offer anyone else emotional safety, and you don't even know often what emotional safety is like. And emotional safety isn't just like, oh, well, I'm never going to have any problems, like, nothing's ever going to come up. No, it's knowing that it will come up. It is
Mm.
100% going to come up. We're humans on this planet, in this society. It's like, most of us are fucked. Like, things are going to come up. Like, not to be crass, but it's true. It's like, well, when those things come up, what's the agreement between the two of you that you will stick to, that you will both feel safe and supported in that container? And I think with you, Daniel, like, I know that I can say things that are triggering me, and I know you're not going to
Mm.
run away. So, like, the other day, I said something about how I was feeling. I can't remember what it was, but I was still feeling vulnerable, and I was like a bit afraid to say it. But I knew that you weren't going to go, oh well, screw you, like, I'm out of
Yeah.
here. You held it, you listened, you thanked me for sharing it with you. You valued what I was sharing with you, and that validated that in me that it was right for me to share it with you. You created a safety, whereas I think when there's not an emotionally safe container, and we've all been there, like, you share something with someone and they have like a trauma response. So you share your trauma, they have their trauma, and then the whole thing blows up, and then you're
Mm.
just kind of ping ponging between like two different traumatized people, and then it kind of makes you feel even worse afterwards because you're in shock, you're in fear, you're in trauma. So I think one of the key parts is, like, whatever works for the two people involved, have like some sort of agreement. Like, we actually came up with some agreements around
Mm.
energetic conversations, but also around our friendship, that we will always talk to each other if it's a problem. You know, we do rituals. So, for example, before we came on to talk today, like, we did a ritual with ancestors and spirit because we recognize that we can't do this alone. And if we
Yeah.
do try and do it alone, it probably won't work that great.
No, definitely. But I think the thing about it is when you cultivate sacred intimacy, and I think we'll go into the attributes of sacred intimacy, about that we for at least from my and I's perspective. But when you cultivate sacred intimacy, for instance, everyone who's watching this, Maya and I are in a union. We are in a union. We are in a sacred union. Again, it is platonic, but we have committed ourselves to each other in to as friends and as people who are working together with energetic conversations. like Mike said, we wrote out agreements. We wrote out agreements. We went into ritual. Like, as like, so in some ways I feel married to Maya. In some way, and honestly, like in some way I do feel, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's like, but it's what I'm speaking to is that commitment. We've made commitments to each other, as friends, that we're gonna be there for each other. That, yeah, I'm not just gonna eject myself from the relationship. That I'm gonna be here. We will work things out. That we will talk things through. We made a bunch of agreements and everything like that. And and that's what it's about. And that's what helps bring that safety there, is that that this person is committed. And I think, again, if we had all of our relationships like this, with family, with friends, with romantic partners, again, how much better would we be in those relationships? How much more vulnerable would we be able to be in those relationships? How much more safe would we be in those relationships? It's just like, it would transform how we engage with people and ourselves completely, I think. Just completely, And so there, yeah, and it is transformative. And I'm gonna probably say that a lot throughout this conversation. It is very transformative. And as humans, we all have an innate desire for intimacy. We all do. We all do. It is a human attribute to desire intimacy and deep connection with other people. And like I said, firstly, you have to have a deep connection with yourself. You can only go as deep with someone else as you've gone with yourself. That's it. And then it's through spirit. For me, it's myself, spirit, and then others. And so what Maya and I, the relationship that we have, everything we do is through spirit. We connect with each other through spirit. Everything we do is through spirit. Energetic conversations is Maya and I through the prism of spirit to all of you all. Everything goes through spirit. There is not one aspect of our relationship that doesn't go through spirit. Everything must do that. Because I'm connecting with Maya's spirit. That's what's going on. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's all of us. So I'm connected with Maya's spirit. And that's what I have to make sure I'm honoring, is her soul. It's the very essence of who she is. Without the physical form, that's what I'm connecting with. And it's like on it, and to be seen for that. And some of us don't know, like, and again, throughout the past few years particularly, but I think particularly as well as I've been building more sacred intimacy with Maya and other people, I've gotten to know my soul more. It's like sometimes, we know our physical body and we see our physical body all the time. But like, I realize that actually, like, we're not necessarily taught to know our soul, to get to know our soul. What is my soul like? What are the characteristics of my soul? And I know that my soul is ambitious, and that's something Maya and I share. My soul is ambitious. My soul, wants the best for myself and this world. And my soul doesn't take any shit. I know that for sure. Like, that is one thing I know for sure. My soul doesn't take any fucking shit. It just doesn't, and it's like, I love that. I love all that about my soul. Like, it's like, and it's just, yeah, it's a beautiful thing to get to know your soul more, as well as getting to know someone else more through the process.
Yeah, I 100% agree, as you know. And what was coming up for me when you were talking about soul is the way that we learn about our soul through sacred relationships, through intuition. And I think any healthy sacred relationship, whether it's platonic, whether it's family, whether it's romantic, it's like, what part is your intuition playing? Because that's your soul speaking. And I know for us, like, it's our intuition has like strengthened so much to the point where, like, there are so many synchronicities, so many things going on that are just like beyond comprehension all the time, because we just keep following our intuitive urges, which is our soul. Like, your intuition is your soul speaking through your body saying, yeah, I like this, I don't like this, we should do this, don't do this. Sometimes it doesn't even make sense. Like, sometimes you want to fight it and you're like, no, like, but I think in a sacred relationship, that other person can reflect back your truest self, your truest form. And I know that Daniel does that for me, and I hope that I do that for you. And also another thing is, one thing that's come up for us in our relationship is calling out abuse. Like, so, like, we have called out when other people have abused our friend. We have said to our friend, this is abuse. Because sometimes you do need to call that out, like where, you know, there have been times when I recognize that you were being abused and I just had to say it. I'm not going to sit back and say, this is okay, because I care about you. And it really pains me to see anyone being abused. Having been abused myself, it's like, that's abuse. We need to like work with that. And I think sometimes people shy away from going deep, from saying the difficult things, from like really telling the truth about what you see is going on for that other person. And I think one of the characteristics of sacred intimacy is you go there, but
Yeah.
because the container is safe, and that because you've built that muscle of like, okay, this person knows this is a safe container. We have rituals and systems in place for if anything goes awry. So anything I say, hopefully this person does know that it's coming from a caring, safe place. I have no investment apart from just care. Like I'm not just calling out abuse for the fun of it, you know. But it's like, I think one of the characteristics as well is the deeper you go, the more, as you said, transformation happens. Things that you can't even predict. Like when we first became friends, we wouldn't know that we'd be calling out abuse in each other's lives and our own lives, and that our lives would transform in this way, in such a great, huge way. And I think whenever there's like true depth in any relationship, transformation naturally happens, because I think that's what the soul wants relationship as well. It like, it's that mirror, it's that sacred mirror and catalyst. And we are both catalysts anyway. So I think we kind of like probably transform more than other people potentially, because we want to, and we're like always doing like this really crazy deep work. But I think if you are stagnant in a relationship and nothing ever changes, you've got to question, am I compromising here? Or are they compromising? Because naturally with spirit, our souls want to grow. Like they want to change, they want to evolve, like you want to experience different things. So is there something stagnant there that needs to be addressed, you know?
100%. I love that. And I think it's important to note as well, you know, like I consider sacred intimacy as a container, you know, and then both mine and I have shared that already on this call. And that container is built with boundaries. That is like, you know, the container that you have, all across it is boundaries. Boundary here, boundary there, boundary there, because that's what allows you to go deep. You know, you cannot, it is not safe to go deep to the levels of depth that we're talking about without boundaries, without healthy boundaries. It is actually dangerous. It is actually dangerous. And so you need boundaries, and you have to articulate those boundaries. You need to agree on those boundaries. You need to know what those boundaries are. What are the boundaries for our relationship? You know, what are the agreements, the boundaries? And so from that point, then you start going deeper. Bit by bit, you start going deeper. And yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's like I said, very confronting sometimes, but it's your soul evolving. It's your soul evolving. It's you transforming. And I mean, what a beautiful thing. What a beautiful thing. Maya, what do you think some of the attributes are of sacred intimacy? So what are these things? So for those listening, they'll be like, you know, what are the characteristics of sacred intimacy? What would you say?
So I'd say some sort of ritual, where like before or while you're speaking, you call in like ancestors and beings from the spirit realms, you know. It doesn't have to ascribe to any religion. Like I don't particularly ascribe to, well, I don't really ascribe to any religion, but you know, calling in people, loved ones who have passed, you know, like basically any form of spirit that you feel comfortable with. Or higher self, you know, like your higher self, your intuition, your guidance. That's what feels more comfortable. I think always bringing in like a ritual, and by ritual, I don't mean like you have to get loads of like elements and like put them around. Literally just kind of closing your eyes, calling in spirit and asking them for guidance for both of you, and then closing the circle again. You know, it doesn't have to be anything huge. So I think that is one attribute. The other is, like you said, sacred container. So feeling like you're held within that container and emotionally safe. Number three, like the ability to change and be appreciated for that. You know, like sometimes when you're in a relationship that could be on the unhealthy side, potentially, when you change, that other person feels threatened, which is understandable because you've changed. And like they might feel a bit insecure. But I think if you've got rituals and systems in your relationship that hold a safe container, that they know, yes, you changed, but you're you still feel the same way about them, or if you didn't, you would definitely bring that up because you've made a commitment to bring that up. Then it creates a safety, and then you can change and transform as a being within that relationship, rather than having to leave that relationship to change. I think, we change as humans, so why should our relationships not change with us? I think that's something that we overlook too much. Communication, like that is such a key part of what we are communicating now. Like this is like such a big part of our lives, like communication. We love it. But yeah, like kind of, even if it's difficult, like kind of trying to communicate difficulties to that person, and being honest and in integrity with your communication, like trying not to hold anything back, because that does build. You feel it inside, like that does build, and it creates resentment. It creates like a build up. You can't rely on the other person to like mind read all the time. Like you have to be accountable for your own emotions and your own responses and behavior within the relationship. So I think holding yourself accountable as well. That's all I can think of for now. I'm sure there's a lot more, but I'll let you say.
Definitely. Well, I think mine are very much linked to yours. You said communication, you said a variety of different things. And I would say with communication alongside that, vulnerability. Like that, it's that ability to be vulnerable, that ability to share yourself. It's like, I remember you articulated this so well. I think when I was in London with you last month, and maybe that's what we can talk about next, is about romance and the illusion of romance and spirit and everything like that. Because I really do think like, and it's oftentimes what we're looking for as people is to be seen. We're looking for a deep connection. But we've been so programmed and wired to think that deep connection equates to sex. Oftentimes, it's like, or some type of like a certain type of physicality, or sexual physicality, I'll say, because there's nothing wrong with, platonic physicality. There's nothing wrong with sex either. Sex is a beautiful thing, but I think we're often wired to think that like, and I know particularly as a man, you get wired to think, all right, I'm craving intimacy. And so now I need to go hook up with someone, just to feel that touch, just to connect. Just to, and I think that is what it is for a lot of us. And, it's like actually knowing that like every time, for instance, I'll just speak for myself. Every time that I get aroused is not actually like, oh, I need to go and have sex. Actually, I use arousal now as an indicator for like, actually, it's time to connect intimately with myself, connect intimately with spirit, or connect intimately with someone else, platonically. It's like, actually, I use it as an indicator that actually I'm craving intimacy. I'm craving emotional intimacy right now. I'm craving some form of intimacy, And because again, when we rely so heavily on sex, again, we can go into this in a little bit, but sex without going through spirit is a very tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing because we have to understand that like, if we're building sacred intimacy, and it all depends on what you want. If you don't want sacred intimacy and you don't want sexually expansive encounters, then this doesn't even apply to you. So which is all good. Keep doing your thing, live your life, have fun, and really have fun, but if you're looking for, sexual experiences that are expansive, where you're building intimate, sacred intimacy, again, the key indicator in there is that it's expansive, that these sexual encounters, that after I have sex with this person, that I feel expanded. My energy feels expanded, because you can have physical pleasure and be energetically drained. Okay, so we're not just talking about the physical. We got to go beyond the physical, people. It's energetic conversations. This isn't physical conversations. This is we're talking about everything that you can't see. All right, we're talking about all the things you cannot see. You can have physical pleasure and be energetically drained and void. Okay, if we're looking at this through the lens of sex, if you come, you are going to feel good to some degree, physiologically, biologically. If you come, you're going to feel good. All right. That's a pretty like across the board for most people. That's a pretty straightforward across the board. That is not a good indicator that you have had a energetically expansive sexual experience at all. So many times I've had sex and then literally it has taken me 2 weeks to recover from that, like energetically. It's like, and the person took you back, like, do you want to meet up again? No, I'm still drained from the last time. I'm still actually drained from the last time. So actually, we're just gonna hold off for a second because actually, you came and you sucked the energy out of me. You know, because it wasn't a good energetic return on investment. You know, my energy was here, their energy was there, and I gave them my energy, and they gave me shit. Literally, my it's like Mario. You said the other time. It's like you give someone an Aston Martin, and they give you a wheelbarrow, and it's like that's it. And it's like you're over here like pushing yourself in this wheelbarrow, and they're driving right past you, honking like beep beep, like driving by, and it's like yo, like again, we need good energetic return on investments. So anyway,
Yeah.
I've gone on a bit of a tangent, but we need to, again, every time that we crave, for instance, physical pleasure does not, sexual physical pleasure does not equate to us needing that being the antidote for us. It's about recognizing, what am I actually craving? Am I lonely? Am I craving connection? Am I craving intimacy? And all those three things can be kind of combined into one. It's about connecting deeply. And so how I got on this tangent was the fact that I remember Maya saying when I was in London with her that when building platonic sacred intimacy is really like energetically and figuratively taking off your clothes and showing the other person, yourself, and being completely naked in front of that person energetically, and that person doing the same, and both of you all seeing each other naked energetically. Like that sex, that is a version of sex. That is a type of sex energetically. Like to just be fully, like energetically in this sacred container. I'm going to take off all my clothes and show you exactly who I am. All of me. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to show you all of me. And you're going to do the same. And we're going to see each other and witness each other and hold each other, give each other space and room in this sacred container. That is it. For me, that's a type of sex. That is a type of sex that isn't a romantic sex or even a physically sexual sex, but it's an energetic sex, I guess, if we're going to call it like that. So I hope everyone was able to roll with me on that tangent.
No, but you're right. It's an energetic exchange. That's what sex is. And I really want to I really agree with what you said about, sex being like the one route to intimacy, and romance also being another route to intimacy that we're given in the Western world, as if they're the only options if we want connection. And actually, like you said, we walk away from more often than not, we walk away. God knows we know this. We walk away from intimate encounters, whether it's sexual or romantic, deeply energetically harmed. Like I'm not kidding, guys. I'm still recovering energetically from this 3.5-year relationship that I walked out of at the end of November. I'm still recovering. Like it harmed me that much, like energetically, because there were no there was no emotional safety. I ignored a bunch of red flags. Like, there was no agreements and commitments that were built in integrity. I tried, but, it didn't work. So, it can be really harmful energetically if you let someone into your mind, body, and soul that isn't actually equipped, and they can't give you what you're looking for. And you end up with a wheelbarrow, and they end up with your Aston Martin because you've given them diamonds. They've given you rocks. I mean, I love rocks. Diamonds are rocks, but literally like a boulder or something. And it's like, what am I supposed to do with it? And I think what Daniel said earlier in the conversation as well about feeling more connected to me through our friendship platonically than he has in romantic encounters. I would say the same. And I know that initially people might go, oh, that's really sad. But actually, I think that's liberating, because that means that you don't need to you can if you want, but you don't need to have romantic encounters to have intimacy. It's the way we've been fed in this culture, but this culture is also quite a sick culture as well. So how do we know that what we're being taught is good? I mean, I'll guess that it's not good. So actually, wouldn't you want intimate connections with everyone? Wouldn't you want platonic relationships, intimate relationships with everyone that you came across? So yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of go through this with Daniel, because I've learned things about myself and relationships that I wouldn't have learned in my romantic relationships.
Definitely. And have healed in ways, in ways that I think would be more challenging if this was a romantic relationship. Because once you bring the romance into it and the sexual aspect into it, the trauma just floods in. The trauma
It's a
floods
tsunami
in.
of trauma, yeah.
Trauma loves hooking itself to our sexual behavior. It loves it. Sexual trauma and sexual behavior go hand in hand. It's like your trauma. I oftentimes think for many of us, if you have trauma, it will just search. It'll be like, okay, where's your sexual behavior? Because I'm just going to attach myself to that. I'm not fully sure as to why that is the case, but I think one, because it's such an intimate part of who we are, like sex and our sexual being is such an intimate and like beautiful part of who we are as well. It's so intricately linked. And this is why we have to have boundaries. And we look, I feel like every time Maya and I have this conversation, we end up sounding some like evangelical pastors or something like that. Like, don't go around having sex with anyone. Like, that's not, I promise you, we are not monastic in that way at all, you know? But it is to be mindful of who we're exchanging our energy with. Whether that's in an encounter platonically, and definitely if it's in a sexual, encounter, because sex is an energetic exchange. That's what it is. So if you're doing I look at it this way. I'm doing all this work, like, healing trauma, healing ancestral lines, confronting myself, doing the shadow work, all this stuff, building sacred intimacy with Maya and doing energetic conversations, being traumatized and like having to process this throughout the week so then I can jump on this IG live with Maya, all this work that I'm doing. And then I'm going to go exchange this energy, all this work. I'm going to go exchange this energy with someone who doesn't give a fuck. That's what I'm going to go and do. Horrible exchange on investment, horrible return on investment, horrible. And that's why I oftentimes in the past have felt so drained energetically when I do end up having sex with people, because it's just a horrible exchange. It's a horrible exchange that gets masked in physical pleasure. And then you're like, okay, that was all right. But then it wasn't. Are you expanded? Yeah. Not at all. Not at all. One of the reasons I was looking down so much when you were speaking, which I apologize for, I was finding the passage in the spirit of intimacy. And I think maybe now it might be a good, a natural intersection for us to do a little reading.
Yes.
I'm just going to read something really short. I think there's like one or two paragraphs. I mean, if you haven't read this book, The Spirit of Intimacy by Subantu Somé, it's a portal. It's a portal. It is a portal. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. But I think I'm just going to read one paragraph. This is on page 98 for those who have the book. This is chapter 9, The Illusion of Romance. Romantic love doesn't really fit in the village. It just doesn't work. The kind of passion, the kind of emotion and connection that Westerners look for from a romantic relationship, village people look for from spirit. The power of romantic love in the West is really a symptom of a separation from the spiritual. I'm going to read that last line again. The power of romantic love in the West is really a symptom of a separation from the spiritual. One more time, just for good measure. One more time, just for good measure. I feel like I'm in church right now. I sound like my dad. The power of romantic love in the West is really a symptom of a separation from the spiritual. Come on now. We give so much energy and power to romance in the West. What is romance? We understand that we're operating in the matrix. Like this, we're operating in capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy. This is a system that is not real. We have been detached from our lands. We've been detached from our people. We've been detached from our spiritualities, our indigenous ways of being. And then what this world tries to do and this society tries to do is says, okay, how can we replicate intimacy? Okay, we'll create romance, and we're going to put it in films. We're going to put it in TV. We're going to put it on billboards, and being in love is going to be all about, traveling and going on dates and nice dinners and walks in the park and buying things on Valentine's Day and And there's nothing wrong with all those things, There's nothing wrong with those things. But it's like, that is not intimacy. That is not intimacy by a long shot. That's nowhere near close to being intimate at all. It's a separation from the spiritual. That's what that is. If that's all you're going on, then that's a separation from the spiritual. Because everything, every connection and encounter we have must go through spirit. It must. So if what you want is sexual experiences that are energetically expansive, you have to go through spirit. You have to. And it has to be your spirit connecting with their spirit. And if their spirit is messed up, you're in danger.
Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest examples of this, of romance culture and how it can be so toxic is, you know, how many of us have gone out with a person, right? And then like ended up like years into the relationship. And then they reveal who they really are. And you're like, how the fuck did I not see this? Like, where have you been hiding this person? Because usually it's because they've like covered it up with all the romance, and we've gone along with it too. It's not like it's there, it's on them. It's like we've created this system of like, you know, like flowers and chocolates and Valentine's Day, and like everything has to go like a certain way. You need to like sleep with them within a certain time, and it has to be like, you know, you have to go on holiday together and get married and all these things. And it's like, well, by the time you've gone through all those things, you're stuck with this person. You don't even know who they are. They might not know who you are because you've been masquerading behind like all of these different things that's called romance. And you don't actually know who they are. And often people lie to even get into relationships. Most of the people I've been with have, maybe unconsciously, maybe consciously, but they have presented like a very different version of who they are to even get into the relationship. You know, and it's like, it's so normal. It's so normal. So for me to be shocked is naive, but it is still shocking. But I think I think we're so, I guess we don't have enough self-worth that we feel like we can present ourselves as we truly are in our wholeness and be loved for who we are. And I think it's tragic, but also we're conscious of this now. So we can actually start to come to a whole place within ourselves first, and then stop accepting less than adequate relationships, relationships with people that don't match our energy. You know, because once they're siphoning your energy, that's it. Like, it can be so harmful. It might not be deliberate, but if you're not matched to someone energetically and they're not on the same path as you, and you're not in alignment, you can spend years trying to get over that relationship, or years trying to get out of that relationship. And so, you know, like I've made a commitment, and Daniel has said that he's going to help me. If I meet someone and I'm like umming and ahhing over this person, I'm going to bring it to you so that we can talk it through, because I have blind spots. I have, based on my own trauma and my own fear of abandonment and the amount of red flags that I have ignored in the past have been huge. So I do need someone else to help me, but someone who sees my soul and sees what's best for me. Not because I want to give my power away, but because I know that I need a community to make a decision that will actually affect the community too. My relationship romantically affect the entire community. God knows Daniel knows this, like, because I've been talking to him about the ending of my previous one. You know, this is not an isolated situation. We are a village, we're a community. So yeah, it's important, I feel, really important.
100%. And thank you for sharing, Maya. I really appreciate that. And I've made the same commitment as well. You know, Maya and I have committed ourselves to each other in certain ways. And likewise, you know, if I meet someone, you know, and I think that this person, I may want to engage with this person in terms of like dating them or even having sex with them, to be completely honest, even just having sex with them, yeah. I'm bringing that to Maya. I'm saying, hey, this is the situation, you know, what do you think? Because again, what I want from myself, and I can only speak for myself, I want energetically expansive sexual experiences. I do. So for me, it's bringing it to Maya and being like, do you think this experience is going to be expansive for me energetically? Like, what do you think? Because there's no point going around having sex with people and you know it's not going to be sexually, you know, energetically expansive, but then that's what you say you want. And I find that a lot with people, you know, and like the people that I listen to as well and stuff like that, is like, we want one thing, but we're still doing another. Like, we're still doing another and still going down the same patterns that we're used to. And it's like, come on now, people, we got to get it together. We got to get it together. And we will. We're going to get it together. Because again, I think it's one of the reasons why trauma attaches to our sexual behavior so well and so frequently and so powerfully, because our sexual, it's so powerful. It's so what we exchange during sex is, honestly, if we could see that, if we had like goggles and we could see what goes on energetically when we have sex with someone, I'm telling you, we would be a lot more particular about who we exchange that type of energy with. A lot more. Because again, it's one of the most intimate things we can do to connect with someone else's spirit. It is. It just is. You know, Maya and I were together last month. I was staying in London with Maya, and we were talking about the spirit of intimacy. Our friend Josiane came over. We had this great conversation. We were sitting on the floor in Maya's kitchen, and we were talking about, like, you know, all the types of relationships we want and the type of sexual experiences that we want, you know, for ourselves and stuff like that. And it was in that moment, you know, by the end of that trip with Maya, I had like committed myself. I was like, you know what? I want energetically expansive sexual experiences. I was like, this is what I know I want. 2 days later, I was out with some of my boys. And I told you this already. I was out with some of my boys. And long story short, there's this man and this woman, this couple that are there at this place that I'm at. You know, my boys and I, we went out dancing to listen to some music. And they were eyeing me up the entire evening. The entire evening, they were eyeing me up. At the bar, I saw them at first at the bar, and, you know, the woman was looking at me, and, like, you know, I didn't know what it was, but she was just looking at me, and I'm kind of just looking down because she's really, like, giving me, like, very intense stare. And her and her partner are being, like, quite sexual with each other, and you can feel the sexual energy just coming from them. They're just oozing with it. Later on in the evening, they're kind of maybe 5 meters to my left, and the guy looks at me, comes over to me, and it's like, hey, what's up, man? And I'm like, hey, what's up? You know, we touch fists and everything like that. I'm like, cool. He says, who'd you come here with? And I was like, oh, 2 of my friends, you know, they're out on the dance floor, you know, they're doing their thing. And he's like, oh, okay, I thought you came by yourself. I was like, nah. In that moment, I knew what was going on. Like, I've been in this situation enough times to know, look, there's an invitation that's being set up here, and more than likely, him and his partner want to sleep with me or want us to sleep together. Look, it is what it is. And we're all grown. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, sounds like a good time. You know, honestly, sounds like a good time. But if we're all energetically and spiritually aligned, which we were not. But so I kind of like leave it for a few seconds, and I'm like, you know what, spirit, what should I do? I've just come from Maya's house 2 days ago saying that I want my sexual experiences to be energetically expansive. And here I am with a test of, like, Daniel, okay, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do what you say you want? And I lean over to him and I say, maybe next time. And he says, where do you live? And we exchange, you know, we have a little bit of an exchange. And he goes off and everything like that. And in that moment, I was like, Daniel, like, if you want to go and sleep with this couple, go and sleep with that couple. Do it. Daniel, you're grown. You're grown. Live your life. You're grown. If all you want is physical pleasure and a good time, go and sleep with that couple. And go and enjoy yourself and make sure you really have a good time. But if what you want is energetically expansive sexual experiences, this is not that. It's not. This is not that whatsoever. So don't go doing that thinking that you're having energetically expansive sexual experiences, because you're not. You're not. Don't lie to yourself, Daniel. And it's about being conscious. Do what you want. People, everybody on this call, do what you want. Maya and I are not here to tell you how to live your life. We really aren't. Do what you want. But if you say what you want is to be energetically expanded, don't go into situations knowing that you're not getting it. Be conscious. And if all you want is a good time and to feel good, have a good time and feel good. But know that you're not going to be expanded from that experience.
Yeah. What can I say? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the consciousness behind it. That's the thing. It's the consciousness behind the choice. Like, there's no right or wrong. It's just like, if you're saying that you're looking for something, then be conscious of that. Because once you say that, you will get the test. You will get the test. You will get
100%.
like they will come to you. And so it's like the universe going, Now, this is what you said. Do you really want that? And then most of the time, like we just go and do the same thing that we're used to. But in this situation, you made a different choice, you know, and you chose like, okay, well, this is what I want. So is this an alignment with what I want? And no, it wasn't, and you were clear about that. But also, it doesn't mean you weren't tempted. You know, I think that's the thing. It's like for anyone, like it doesn't mean that you're not like, ooh, curious about this situation, but like, you know, just for me, I find I look at like my previous sexual experiences and like Daniel said earlier, like just because it physically felt good doesn't mean it was energetically expansive. And I'm not kidding. I don't remember any time that I've slept with someone that I've like felt expanded, like and joyful. I've often felt bad because it's brought up a lot of trauma. It's like actually it's been the opposite. It's been actually quite traumatic. And like and like you don't get taught about this stuff. Like you don't get taught about this stuff at school. It's like, yeah. Well, I mean, men especially go out and you get socialized mainly to enjoy sex and talk about sex. And, you know, so even if you have trauma, it's not like openly, you're not encouraged to be vulnerable about it. And then with women, it's like, we're not even encouraged to enjoy it anyway, particularly. I mean, now we are, but when I was growing up, it was like, who were you to enjoy sex anyway? But then when you do, it's like, well, I barely did it anyway. It's like, my trauma was just colliding with someone else's trauma, and it just didn't end that great. Like, I don't remember feeling like, oh, I'm expanded. Like a good feeling in my body. And I started to think, hang on, like I'm in serious relationships with these people. And I have to say at this point, like they've all been men so far. Who knows what's going to happen next? But like, you know, I was in serious relationships with these men, and yet I kept feeling the same way. You know, and that's on me as well. Like that, I had to question my choices and like my patterns and my behavior. It's like, well, I'm the common denominator here. Like, and I think coming out of this last relationship, I'm like, no, I can't live like this again. Like, I have to make a drastic change. And if that means bringing someone else in, like you, Daniel, to actually help me make those choices, I'll do it. Because I cannot have those experiences again that have been like so energetically harmful and draining. You know, and it's not like about any doctrines or like, I'm not religious, you're not religious. Like, it's not even about that. It's just like looking after your spirit. Like, it's about not being harmed. Like, and knowing that like what you have in here is genuinely precious. It's like someone like robbing your house. Like, who do you want you to, you know, like intrude on your house? Like, who do you want to have access to these like really vulnerable parts of you? Like, just being more careful of that, I think. And more realistic about like the reality of like what sex is, and that it is so intimate. There is such an energetic exchange there.
100%. Maya, you said that so beautifully and so eloquently. It's just being mindful and being conscious. And I think that's really what we're kind of like trying to round this off with, is just being conscious of who we're exchanging our energy with, whether it's sex, whether it's a friendship, whether it's family, whoever. Being conscious of the energetic exchange that's going on so that we can make sure that we're protecting ourselves. And it's spiritual hygiene. Something Maya talks about a lot. It's spiritual hygiene. We've got to protect ourselves because we need all the energy we've got. We need all the energy we've got for what's the work that's ahead. The work that's ahead and the work that's now. If I'm over there being drained sexually and energetically, how the hell am I going to come up here on energetic conversations and do all the work that happens in between these IG lives? Like, literally, how will I do that? Literally, you know. Yeah. But you're right. It is tempting, and it doesn't mean that you won't be tempted. I was tempted a few weeks ago when that couple came up to me. You know, I was tempted. Now, don't get me wrong. There was a myriad of issues in this situation, like that we won't even go into right now, because that's a whole other IG live. But I was tempted. And you know what? You do feel the sexual energy, and you do feel yourself getting aroused, and you do start playing with the idea of it. But I knew that was not going to be an energetically expansive experience. And actually, I can choose something else. And one thing that really helped me was the fact that I knew I had Maya. Even though Maya was all the way in London and I was in Bristol, I knew that I was in relationship with Maya. And again, it's not a romantic relationship, but knowing that I have a deep and intimate, sacred relationship with Maya, that helped me make a better decision. Because I was like, you know what, Daniel, I'm I'm not on my own. I was speaking to myself. I was like, I'm not on my own. I'm not on my own. I have someone. I do have someone, and I have multiple people. You know, I have a tribe around me. And if I'm looking for intimacy, Daniel, you can go there. I can go to Maya. I can go to Trey. I can go to Josiane. I can go to the people in my tribe and find intimacy there. That's going to be healthy. That's going to be life-giving. That's going to be expansive. I don't have to go and sleep with this couple and feel good for half an hour, however long it lasts, and then I go back home feeling drained. I don't have to make that same decision over and over again. I don't have to. Actually, I care about myself more now because same with you, Maya. I don't remember a time, and I'm being completely honest right now. Almost every sexual encounter I've had has been traumatic in some way. It has been, and I will be the first to admit. That doesn't mean that it didn't feel good. It didn't mean that I didn't come, because I did. You know, look, but, and not to be crass or anything like that, but you know, look, we're all here. But it has triggered so much trauma in me each and every single time. And it's true what you said. It's just like my trauma and their trauma is just colliding. It's just colliding. And that has been the majority, if not all, of my sexual experiences. You know, they've been incredibly traumatic. And that doesn't mean that physically I haven't felt good, but they have been very traumatic for me. And I have to work and process that and work through that. And then I hope that my future sexual experiences will be so expansive that the plants are going to grow back, you know, like in my room, like, you know, anything that's dead is going to come back to life. Like, you know, flames are just going to combust. That's what I want. You know, that's what I want, you know, and I wish that for everyone. If that's what you want, I wish that for you. That is my prayer and intention for everyone, to have these beautiful, life-affirming, life-giving, expansive sexual encounters. And not just sexual encounters, that your relationships will just be life-giving all in total, like regardless of what type of relationship they are, that they will just be life-giving. When Maya and I speak, honestly, like, there are times I literally feel so much energy running through my body. Literally, it's like, I feel like I could like fly to the moon. Like when Maya and I are on calls, and we'll be on calls for like 8 hours. And I'm telling you, the energy is just literally, I feel like I can lift a car up because it's expansive. It's expansive, and spirit is meeting spirit, and both spirits are going through spirit to meet, and it's expansive. Now, if my sexual experiences aren't like that, I don't want it. I don't want it. You can keep it. You can keep it. You can keep it.
That's it. That is it. And it's so nice to know that, like, because we've made that decision, that commitment, like, we're going to bring these, like, temptations or different things to each other to talk through. I feel safer because I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I'm never going to have as crap experiences as I've had. And like, then it gives me something to look forward to, because like, oh, well, I just know I'm not going to go backwards now. I don't know how it's going to be, but it can't be as bad as that. Like, there's a sense of peace, like safety and security in that. It's like, we're not alone. I'm not alone. Like, I have you. And, you know, whatever happens to me, like, you will be there in a way, like not in a weird sort of way, but like, I think with anyone who has intimate platonic relationships, like you all go through relationships together. If someone's in a romantic relationship, that does affect like the people that you're in other relationships with. It does, whether it's family or friends. So it's like just accepting that this is a village, this is a tribe, we're having a collective shared experience, you know? And the sooner we kind of accept that, the less alone and isolated and unhealthy we might feel, or the less unhealthy our relationships can be.
100%. 100%. I feel like we're starting to reach a natural conclusion now. Yes. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them out. But if not, it has been so good spending time with you, Maya, and with everyone that's been listening, whether you're listening to it live or you're listening to it back on YouTube or Instagram. Thank you for joining us in this sacred space. Maya, it's just been beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you, Daniel, for holding space for this conversation. And thank you to everyone who's been part of it for holding space for us to have this conversation. You are part of the container as well. So yeah, we hope you get something out of this. The sun's shining through. I can see it on the here. So that's a nice way to end it. But yeah, until next week, thank you so much.
See you all. Take care. Lots of love.
Bye.